Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and with me this season is the man himself, the social media director and website maker of Uriah Heep, Dave White. Dave, how are you?
Hey, Scott, I am back. I'm looking forward to this week's episode.
This is going to be a marathon. This is one of the longest songs on this crazy album.
I know. I can't wait. I love this tune.
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. It's cold today. It was 70 this time last week. It's like 55 right now.
Oh, wow.
Actually, it was 29 last night, 29 Fahrenheit for all those people overseas. So, but it's slowly getting warmer.
As the last country to refuse to convert, we have to do things our own way here. It's actually been unseasonably warm already here. We've already had days in the 90s. And for us, that is not a good sign because we'll hit 118 before too much longer. And it's then becomes a matter of, how long is this summer going to last?
I was going to say, how far can you go if you're already at 90?
That's the worry.
You're already there. You're already in uncomfortable mode.
Exactly. And I'm hoping, I think we'll have at least one more cold spell before it turns to summer, but it's not far off, my friend.
Wow. I will come out and visit when it gets really cold here one more time. I'll come visit you so I can warm up.
There you go. All you have to do is get off the plane and you'll be like, all right, I'm good going back to Ohio.
I can imagine.
I'll just meet you at the airport.
Meet you at the airport.
I actually live right outside the airport, so it's perfect. That's
right, because you use that utility on your sound system to get rid of the planes flying overhead.
That's right. IDC, Instant Dialog Cleaner.
Ta-da.
Now, we have a challenge on this episode and maybe a couple of episodes coming up this season. I may have to break the one rule I have on this show. Do you remember what the one rule is, Dave?
No.
I do not interrupt a Mick Box solo.
Oh, okay.
Now, because I don't know these songs, here's my concern. I know that there's some long jams coming up. And I'm afraid that they're just going to go too long. And at some point, I'm going to have to break it up. I might have to interrupt Mick at some point.
Well, you'll interrupt him, but I don't think on this song, I don't think he'll really be soloing. He'll be accompanying with a solo style, but he won't have a guitar solo on this song so much.
Okay, perfect.
And you don't remember this. Really didn't. Last week we talked about this, and you said you were not going to listen to this, and you hadn't heard this version of this song in a long time. Is that still the case?
I did not listen to it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. Well, this will be great then.
I will admit I was tempted, but I stick to my word. When I say something, I do everything I can to keep my word. And I did not listen to it. But you know what I did listen to? I listened to Salisbury last night on my way down to my walk on the Strip. And here's what I learned. The area that's between me and the Tropicana Hotel where I park is under construction right now. So I can get to the Tropicana, and when I get there, Mick's first solo is just about to start.
I knew it. You were going to say something along those lines. That's great.
But coming home, I can get through the entire song before I even hit the street I live on.
One of my favorite things to do. One of my favorite things to do, and you probably experience the same thing, when you pull in your driveway and the song is ending, and it ends when you shut the car off. Mm-hmm. Whatever song you happen to be listening to. I've had that happen so many times. You're coming down the street and you go around the block and you pull into the driveway and it's on the last 3 seconds and it ends.
Yeah, that's perfect. But I usually have to drive around the block a couple of times to make that happen.
Depends how long the song is.
It does. It does. Salisbury's not one to really test that with. But,
no, it's not. No.
But it was really nice to just listen to the band again without critiquing, just be able to just enjoy it as a fan again.
This one clocks into 12 minutes.
It does.
It's a good long song.
Well, I say we get right into it.
Let's go. I'm ready.
For the first side, I look at yourself, and it's called July Morning.
Okay, first of all, I just love the sound of that. The organ just sounds so amazingly powerful.
It does. I agree.
The distortion level's really nice too.
I kind of think of this as like their Stairway to Heaven song. I mean, this to me is like the song that if they were going to try to concoct something like Stairway to Heaven and along those lines, this would be that song. This is got everything in it that Uriah Heep had then to show everybody and to have them listen to. And that organ is about as good as it's going to sound. This is one of the there's a lot kinds of versions live of this song from that era. I think this is the best sounding organ on the whole batch of those.
Interesting. Now, a couple notes on this song before I forget. One, in the original studio version, Ken Hensley did not do all the crazy organ at the end.
He did not. Manfred Mann was brought in to do a Moog synthesizer solo for the end of the song.
I have to wonder how that went over with Ken, though.
I don't know. I've never heard anything about his feelings about it, other than it turned out, fine. And they were. I don't know of any problems. I never talked to Ken about that specifically. I do know I really enjoy what he does on this live version better than the original.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to be curious to hear that because, like you said, I haven't heard this song in a long time, decades. And so I don't know. And I had always wondered what would Ken have played in the studio had he been the one to do that part. The other thing is that when I interviewed Paul Newton, the original bass player on this song, he said that he got the inspiration for the bass line from Deep Purple's Child in Time because it has those dun, dun, dun. And here it's just those three notes, which is really interesting because I kind of feel like this is their Child in Time.
Well, I heard that also. So I think that's probably true. Mm-hmm. Ken said he wrote it. They were touring with somebody and he had time to write music and he wrote this one in the bus or on the bus or something and brought it to the band. And he and David Byron actually put the thing together from 3 different pieces of 3 different songs they were noodling around with. And they ended up with a chorus and an intro and the ending. And the band put the song together. In one version, I heard Ken say he did this on a piano, but in the other version, I heard him say he was on a bus. He did it on acoustic guitar. So I think it's probably the guitar version versus the piano version. You can't put a piano on a bus generally. Originally a David Byron, Ken Hensley song. So that's how it started. And I think it's very true to the album version, but definitely live and different and evolved from the album version to this version. But it's actually pretty true. Most of the things he plays, as far as the organ parts, are fairly similar to the album version, but they're more evolved because they're live and they're more emotive because they're live and they're a little slower. The whole song is slower. Well,
even in this little intro here, we had a bit of a trill in there that wasn't in the studio version.
And he doesn't do that in the studio version, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. It was a nice surprise, though. I liked it.
Yep, me too.
Okay, I'm not going to be stopping this every 5 seconds, but where is Gary Thain getting these ideas? He's all over the place, but everything he's doing is working.
You don't get much more powerful than that. Yeah, he's everywhere on this. It's so much this song has so much of him in it, in all the right places, doing all these really great little riffs and things, discorded type things that add to the feeling of where they are in the song. Yeah, he's all over the world, and Mick is doing a different style of the same intro, and I think it's just like perfect for a live setting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed a little bit of a trill a couple times there also. Yeah. What did he do to his sound though? It sounds screechier.
It's different. It's different. It's live. He maybe turned a knob, or he's closer to the amp and it's distorted more, maybe on his pedal board. I mean, he didn't use a whole lot of pedals back then. I think he has one going right now, but it's not as clean. It's definitely more gritty. It's more distorted.
Yeah, it definitely sounds different than it did on Easy Livin'. And again, assuming that, well, we really don't know what the actual performance order was, but definitely doesn't sound like a sound I've heard on anything we've listened to so far.
He's very loud right now. Maybe he can't get much louder than that, not just squeal. So, yeah.
But it was like that in the studio, if I remember right. The opening had a little bit of a different sound than the rest of the song.
The opening, the very beginning is kind of like this. Yeah, but he's cleaner in the album version.
There I was on a July morning. I was looking for love with the strength of a new day dawning and the beautiful sun. At the sound of the first bird singing, I was leaving for home with the storm and the night behind me, yeah, and a road of miles.
Wait, slower than I would have expected.
It's slower, much slower than I'd say. I don't know if it's really half as slow, but it feels like it's about a third again slower to me. Yeah. Ken is doing some stuff he doesn't do on the original, and I think they just evolved to this point. Like I said earlier, he's got little things in there that he's doing. Left hand's doing one thing, right hand's doing something else, rather than just playing the chords like he did. And on the original one, on the studio version, I think you'll recognize a nylon string guitar in the background during the first couple of quiet verses where David's singing. On this, Mick isn't doing that. He's picking a little bit on it with his guitar really low in the mix, really quietly, not distorted, but it's not the same feeling. This is all organ. This is Ken's showcase song. So this is all organ and David's voice, which is like the third organ keyboard as far as I'm concerned. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, I'm hearing just small inflections of Mick coming in here. Trevor's really calmed down from where he was a minute ago. But, or I'm sorry, Gary. Why did I say Trevor?
Gary Thain.
He's really calmed down. But yeah, I really like what Ken's playing here, because when you're live, it's got to be a little bit more interesting, and he's throwing some things in there that every one of them are like, oh, that's a good idea. Oh, I like that. Nothing seems out of phase, out of touch with the song at all.
No, and on the versions I've heard, that like we've all heard the live versions later on with this lineup, this is the way he did it. Not so much toward the end. The ends are always a little bit different. But right now in this part of the song, this is what he did. This is what it evolved to. I think it's a lovely transition from what it was originally to what it's become now. It's really very emotive. It's very quiet and just pulls David Byron along with it. And in the same token, David Byron's pulling the organ along. So it's a perfect unison, I think, of both those two guys doing this together. Yeah,
they're definitely very complementary on this. I think that what Ken's playing adds a little bit more emotion to what David's singing, and that I think then brings more emotion out of David as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey.
I was wondering how they were going to pull that off. That sounded really good.
How quiet that got. Yeah, they're perfectly in harmony. Isn't that cool? They just did that like perfect.
Yeah, the backup started a little rough in the chorus there, but apart from that, everything after that was just perfectly on. And I just love that volume swell with the vocals too, because they all swelled together.
Right. It was perfectly done. And you know, and as Ken Style progressed in his live stuff, that Leslie in the background is providing all this Doppler to the whole song as it slows down and just carries them along with it. But by the time they're done singing, it's in idle mode. But all the time they were doing that, it was winding down. It was really very, very tastefully done.
I agree. As short of a chorus as this song has, I have always thought it was a very powerful chorus. The words, the way that they're delivered, the music that swells backing it up. It doesn't need to be a long chorus to really have a punch, but this one has a really good impact. Yeah.
In my mind's eye, I can see them kind of rocking back and forth, just doing those power chords, and going through that. The song's in C minor. So if that's kind of lower in the register for a lot of things, and it's just beautifully put together.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Let's hit that second verse.
I was looking for love in the strangest places. Wasn't a stone that I left unturned. I must have tried more than 1,000 ways, but not one was aware of the fire that burned. In my heart, in my mind, in my soul. La 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 la, la 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 la, la
Wow. Just wow.
Yeah. Can you imagine what it must have felt like to watch this thing grow over the months till they got it to this point?
No, I mean, it's it's like watching your hair grow. They probably didn't notice a lot of the things that just naturally developed. But when you look at your head of hair after it's grown out, you're like, wow, that is a head of hair.
Yeah. Gary Thain is like everywhere in this. Like, he's so melodic. Mm-hmm. I keep saying he's doing a song within a song, but that's what he is. He is playing a song within this tune. And he's always in the right spot at the right time. And he's so melodic with those runs.
What amazes me though, is it almost feels like he just says, just tell me what key we're in and I'll play. Yeah. And doesn't even care about the song that's going on, because he's not with the song, but what he plays still relates to the song. It's really something that is rare, especially in a bass player.
What they did, when they've evolved, when Trevor Bolder was playing this with them live, there was always a part in July Morning where Trevor had a bass solo, and he'd always have like he'd have his Fender bass over his head, and he was tugging at the strings, and he was doing his version of what Ken just did. Mm-hmm. But that was his spot in the song. And Gary doesn't do that in this. Ken does his own thing, and Gary provides the bass lines for him. I think the two are talking to each other, I mean, in the notes that they're playing, it is so well put together, and it just seems like it's exactly the way it probably should have ended up being. Pretty much. I mean, I can't imagine this song being any better than this version of it.
Well, thinking about the studio version, because I think what Paul played on this was like doom 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 doom, and on that down note, you could draw that string like a bow if you wanted to, and really make it pop. But that would be, I think, too much for the song. I think Gary's just found that right place to sit within the song, where he's playing a lot, but he's not overplaying it. And the distortion's not on. It's just a really good sound to his bass at this point too.
Yeah. And they probably cemented certain things after they've done it a bunch of times when they, Gary, you do this in that spot, because that sounds great. Do that all the time there. And after a while, they learn that that's the way he's going to play it.
Yeah.
So by this point, that's a performance versus just figuring out what to play when he wants to. This is a learned thing now. It's just really, really well put together. It adds everything that it needs to add to be the perfect bass for this song at this point in their career and at this point in the song, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think that you're right on with that. I think he's just found something really magical within the song. And it's like taking what Paul did, but putting his own style to it and creating something completely new. Right. And it feels like he's off the rails, but he's not. And that's what really gets me.
Just the way he played. He was that good. It was that good. Mick is pounding away on those power chords. I can just see him doing it.
He's like, I'll get in there somewhere.
And he hasn't started to showcase yet, but he will shortly. So remember your rule of thumb, right?
That's
Can't
right.
Cut him off. Okay, well, we'll see how this goes. But he hadn't started. You're going to hear him real quick, and he's very prominent, and he's really out there. So, and what he's doing now became a staple for this song, of course. So,
well, and you're right. Ken has stayed very true to the song. I mean, he's done different things with it, but he's stayed pretty true to the original. So I find that interesting that because he's so creative, he hasn't just gone off in different directions.
He really didn't change it a whole lot, but he changed it enough. Yeah.
Enough to make it different and interesting for a live situation, but not enough so that you felt like you were listening to a different song.
And part of it might be too, Scott, that it's slower.
Yeah.
He's got room to kind of like make it mean more than it meant the first time, I think. I mean, that's how I can describe it.
Well, even with this last section, I feel almost like he's physically digging into the organ. That he's feeling that much emotion and energy and focus that I almost feel like he's pushing into those keys, even though they're not going to make more of a sound, no matter how hard you push them.
The other thing is, if you've seen him, video of him live back then, that keyboard was rocking.
Oh yeah.
And he had it up on his knees, and it was a Moog on top of a Hammond B3 or a C3, and he's rocking that thing. Plus, he's doing all this at the same time. So, yeah, I think he was probably digging in there. Whether or not he was trying to, he was doing it because it's that physical of a thing.
Yeah, and I think people don't if you're not a musician, you don't always understand the power that music can have, even if it's something that you've written, or especially if it's something you've written. You just get so caught up in it that you start making physical movements that you would never make otherwise.
I know. I saw a band over the weekend. My wife and I went out, and the keyboard player was playing out of a Nord. The Nord, kind of, one of the organ versions of a Nord. And they were playing a blues thing, and he was trying to play a slow passage, rocking the key, so it would vibrate. It doesn't work that way.
Right. Yeah.
He was going back and forth with his finger, trying to make it like a guitar vibrato, but it wasn't working. But he felt that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the only keyboard I know that actually does that is the Rolly, which is a more recent thing, but it's almost like a rubber keyboard, and you can actually make a lot of different movements on it that it'll pick up, and you could do that. But I don't know of any other keyboard that works that way. Certainly not back then. Yeah,
probably not. They synths weren't even out then, so you didn't have the little thing where you couldn't even. Right. There's a thing where you can pull this lever over and it'll go down that, down half an octave or up half an octave. You didn't have that then. You did on the Moog, but it wasn't like that. It was an oscillator. So
right. I was just going to stop it when Mick started playing, so I'm really glad I didn't. I have always loved this riff. In fact, this riff was the thing that really locked in my love for this song, because it's very intricate. It's long, but it feels intriguing and mysterious and spooky at the same time.
It's got a spookiness to it for sure. Yeah. Yeah, on the album version, Mick was a lot louder. I like him much better this way when he's more embedded along with the organ than being standing out in front like it was on the original recording. This to me is a much better mix, and it's much more meaningful, for the reasons that you just brought out.
Right. It's almost like he walked out of the hallway into the living room to just fill in and then go back into the hallway again. Like I just wanted to do this. I'll be back later, But that's one thing, and I've said this many times throughout the course of this podcast, is that I love those fillers that Mick puts in there. Those are the things a lot of times that make the song so memorable or so catchy. It's not always the riff. It's those little treasures that you get along the way.
And there's a lot of them on this version of this song that weren't in the original. They're all over. Mick does them all over the place. Ken does them. Of course, Gary's doing them. Lee's doing them. This is a live thing, and they're all. It's quite a bit fuller. It's quite a bit more intricate in places, and less intricate in places that didn't need them in the beginning, but they were there. This is a better version, I think.
Yeah. Well, when they're recording, a lot of times they just develop the song and record it. And it's really through performing it that the song really takes shape. The shape it could have had you spent a year or two developing it before you recorded it.
One thing that adds to the section that you're talking about with the spookiness thing, they're playing harmony together. Ken and Mick are doing a harmony thing where in the original they didn't. Mm. They both played the same note. That da 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 da. They're both playing the same thing. In this one, the last 3 or 4 notes, you'll notice them as they go on because they do it the same way every time. Ken is doing a harmony to the very top 4 or 5 last notes that Mick does, and it really adds to the end of that passage before it goes back down to the C minor and they start the slow part again, or the slow quiet part again where David comes in. So next time that comes up, see if you can pick it out.
Yeah, I'm sure I will. I was listening to so many things. And of course, every time Gary does something, I'm kind of like, what did Gary just do? I honestly think if I had been at this show and been of a reasonable age, say 17, 18, where I had a good understanding of music, I think I just would have stood there with my jaw dropped watching this be performed.
I think I saw them do this twice with this lineup, and back then, it was a long time ago, and I don't remember it specifically, but I remember what they sounded like without remembering the songs. I just know they were so loud and they were so full, but you heard everything. Yeah, with a song of this intenseness and this definition, that the song needs to have great definition. I'm sure it did. So if you're thinking back about what you would have felt like, everybody probably felt just like that.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. This is really stunning. I get why you listened to it 4 times this week.
No, it's great. Yeah, I just never get tired of it.
Right.
Yeah, every time you hear it, it's like, oh, good, that part's coming again. I just heard it 10 minutes ago.
Right.
Works for me.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show. And thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!